Welcome. You are listening to The Travel Winds, hosted by Pete Kotzbach. This is a weekly interview show about people who travel for work and all the ups and downs that go along with it. Each episode includes a variety of discussions with athletes, business people, musicians, influencers, entertainers, and even regular folks from around the world. Thanks for listening. Here we go. Welcome. You are listening to The Travel Winds, hosted by Pete Kotzbach. This is a weekly interview show about people who travel for work and all the ups and downs that go along with it. Each episode includes a variety of discussions with athletes, business people, musicians, influencers, entertainers, and even regular folks from around the world. Thanks for listening. Here we go.
Welcome to the Travel Winds podcast. Today my guest is actor, voice actor, impressionist, master impressionist, Jim Meskimen. How are you today, Jim?
I'm doing real good. Thanks for calling.
I appreciate the time. It's always nice to get a well-known person on the phone. I spent the whole weekend watching your reels in all your YouTubes. It was awesome.
Wow. Yeah, I've been feeding YouTube now since about 2009. So there's a lot of content there, and it's been great. I enjoy the creativity of it. I love doing impressions on a daily basis for people and meeting people all over the world. Would love to hear Robin Williams. A lot of people, it brings back a lot of nice memories for people to hear Robin Williams' voice. And so it's something that I try to do. I do every day something.
I was going to say, well, and then you're doing some episodes with the talent of the family, the tea with Tamra.
Yeah, that's right. That's my beautiful wife. I do a little episode with my beautiful adult daughter, Taylor, and kind of a cross-generational program. And it's fun, and it makes a nice a way for people to find out about us and our family and what we do. I think, I dare say, we're pretty nice bunch of people that are doing interesting things. And of course, my mom, Marion Ross, we try to get her on camera as often as we can, too.
I know, and she just had a big birthday.
That's right, big 9-4.
It's unbelievable. She'll always be Mrs. Steubing to me, though.
Oh, Captain Steubing's wife on the Love Boat.
Yeah. We during our COVID downtime, we started watching some of the Love Boats, and we actually went down to where the Princess Cruise was at. And then we're watching, I'm like, Marion Ross marries Captain Steubing? How's that work?
Yeah, that was a fun gig for her. She really enjoyed it. I have to confess, I don't think I've ever seen any of those Love Boats that she did. I've got to check them out.
Well, I'll send you the DVDs.
All right.
You laugh, but I do have them.
Wow, nice.
Well, I was going to ask you, as a person that works in person a lot, how did COVID affect you? And touring?
Well, a lot. I mean, it just shut all that down. Yeah. No, that was one of the nasty things about it is that suddenly people weren't gathering and you couldn't go to a live show and I couldn't see other performers and nobody could see me. So, yeah, that was a dreadful gap, but it's over now. I think people are going out a lot more. I've been going out a lot more and seeing other performers. So I'm putting together writing a new show. But lately, I've been working so much on television, I haven't had time to get down to writing as much as I need to. So I feel bad about that. But I've been working, so
absolutely,
that's all fine.
I was going to ask you, how do you balance? Because you have so many things going on. You have your acting, you have your voiceover, you have the website, you have your Jimpressions shows, you have the tea with Tamra. You've got a lot going on.
Online courses, and there's a lot. I do charity performances. If anyone asks me, I try to put a show together for charities. And I think the way I balance it, terribly well. But the way I do it is by tolerating as much as possible the rapid shifting of gears. And over the years, I've gotten quite practiced at.
Yeah.
But I have a high tolerance doing a variety of things in a day, and also of not knowing exactly what's going to happen, like next week, for example. That's kind of a freelancer mentality that I've had for better or for worse, most of my life. It began when I was a freelance artist, cartoonist, and illustrator, where I didn't necessarily know how we were going to pay the bills, but I knew that I was going to schlep my portfolio around and show people, and things would come in. And so today, I know what I'm doing today, and I know what I'm doing the rest of the week. But next week, not quite clear about it. But I don't worry about it because now it's been 35 plus years of this kind of nonsense.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to ask you about. I'm a 100% commission sales rep. So my day job is if I don't sell anything, guess what? I don't get paid.
Right. But you've got confidence in your ability to sell, right?
Absolutely. I have to.
So that's more valuable than having a string of, in some ways, a so-called secure job,
Sure.
Where a lot of people knuckle under and they get a secure job, and then they find out, well, it's not quite as secure as it looked, especially this day and age when companies rise and fall like wheat.
Yeah.
It's much better, I think, to have what you have, which is confidence in what you can do, belief in yourself, and a track record, and all the best practices that you've accumulated, and that's how I operate too.
Do you think that's what I was going to say? Do you think that's why you branch out into so many things? That way, at some one of these things is going to hit type.
Yeah. I have a lot of interest, so I have a lot of skills, and there's a lot of different opportunities that arise for me. So I try to be like a Swiss Army knife a little bit, and always have something to offer that'll help a show or a creative group attain their desires. And that's what's great about Impressions is it's funny. There's not a huge demand for it, but there are odd little demands for Impressions.
Yeah.
Like I'm not Rich Little. I don't have a room in Vegas, and I don't aspire to that. And although I've toured a little bit and I have a live show, it's not the way I principally made my living. I've made my living in a variety of different ways. I do recordings for, I do Colonel Sanders right now, which is an impression, of a very famous fellow that used to walk the earth. And now he's a symbol of that very fine chicken, hand battered, hand breaded, hand washed, and 11 herbs and spices and all that stuff. Yep. So that's an application that helps the KFC people and their company and to promote their wares. Also, I do, occasionally a celebrity or an actor of any kind, not even a famous one, has to have their voice replaced or augmented for a film. And so, people like myself, impressionists and voiceover actors, get hired to come in and say, well, we have this scene, but there's a problem because there's a noise over it, or we've changed the script or other reason. And can you do this guy's voice? Because for one reason or another, we can't get him, or he's too expensive, or he's passed away, and then that's an odd little job, but I've done that many, many times for a lot of different actors.
That's do you ever add actors based on their proclivity to get jobs?
Do I add them?
Do you look at it and go, well, Christoph Waltz has got a lot of new parts coming up, so you kind of work on
That's right. So, that's a very good idea. If I was that forward thinking, I would absolutely apply my skills to that exact target.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it too much that way, planning ahead, because again, I'm too scattered. But there have been like actors that I've done their voice more than one time for projects. Michael Douglas, I've done a lot of times, and Colin Firth, the British actor Colin Firth, often for trailers that they can't get him to record, or he can't be bothered. And then they'll call on me several times. I've done that for different films. So I confess, I have looked down the line and see what else is Colin working on lately, and will I get a call? Yeah.
And you got the new role coming up with of Senator Edward Gurney.
Yeah, that's actually already up on Stars. It was a series that launched in April. It's called Gaslit. It's a Watergate story with Julia Roberts and Sean Penn, and I played Senator Gurney, and I got to work with both those actors, and that was less of an impression job, really. It was just a straight acting drama job. I looked. Senator Gurney is not well represented on YouTube, so I would have tried to and not that well known. He was not one of these flamboyant or colorful characters that people recall from Watergate. I didn't recall him, but he was significant in our script. So that's on Stars, and that's a very interesting series. I thought it was pretty compelling. And I have a show. I don't know when it's coming out. There's a series I'm working on called The Big Door Prize, and that's from the makers of Schitt's Creek. And it's very funny, very dry show about a small town in which a very high-tech fortune-telling machine suddenly appears in a grocery store, and it purports to tell people their true destiny in life. And it spits out these little cards and creates a lot of chaos because most of the advice isn't what they're doing in their life at all. And they start to adopt it and change their lives. And it stars the very funny Irish actor Chris O'Dowd, who I love to imitate because he's so funny and it's such a wonderful accent. It's such a wonderful point of view. And I think whenever it comes out on Apple TV, I think it'll be a big hit. But right now, I don't know when the release date is.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah, he was great on the IT Crowd.
Oh, I love that show.
Yeah,
love that show. Yeah.
My wife and I, we spent a lot of time so as a traveling sales rep during the day, when the country shuts down, guess what I don't get to do?
Travel. All right, travel.
So that's why we started watching some of the old shows that the Love Boats and Fantasy Islands. Because we were just like, we got a week to kill. It's only going to be 2 weeks,
Yeah, we could stick it out. How bad could it be?
Yeah. And it was a little nerve-wracking. Did you ever get to that point, or did you always have business throughout the downtime, or were you kind of like a lot of us?
I'm fortunate. Because I did have business through the downtime, because I have a sound booth, which I'm sitting in right now, a studio where I can do very professional recording. And I have had that for a number of years. So I could continue my Colonel Sanders work. And luckily they had a very thriving takeout business, which they put the gas on. And I also do audiobooks. So I recorded a lot of audiobooks.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And I even did some video games during that time, because that's another area where I have a toe in. So it was miserable because I had to quickly. I mean, it was miserable for everybody. I just hated the whole.
Yeah.
Who didn't hate the pandemic? There were just so many things that were just miserable about it. But I am fortunate in that I was able to work steadily through all that time period.
And that's got to be nice. Now that you have an adult age daughter, like I have too.
Mm-hmm.
Did you take jobs earlier in your career based on being home and not out on the road or doing long tours because you wanted to be around the family, or?
Well, it worked out okay. I mean, when she was just a little thing, of course, it hurt me to leave town. I lived in New York at that time when my daughter was born, and you don't want to leave the first little baby, our only little baby. It was painful, but most of my business was in New York, or maybe I'd leave for a night or a couple of days. So it wasn't like I'm not the kind of actor that goes out on tour for months and months and doesn't see his family for all that amount of time. So I could bear it. I were a couple, 2-3 days away from the baby, and then as she got to be older, she became quite a seasoned traveler, and so we would go. I got a job one time playing Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen's father in a film. And it was a film that, for whatever reason, Bryan Cranston turned down. And I got to go to Australia, Sydney, Australia, and I took the family. My daughter, who was like 10 at the time, and loved the Olsen twins. So they were like 13 or 14. They were just a little bit older. She was 10. She got to meet them and go to Australia. And so we had our own little adventure that way.
And that's what I do with when my kids were smaller, especially in the summertime. I would take them out on the road with me. And it kind of gave them an idea of what Dad was doing when he wasn't home. But it also got to show them different parts of the country.
Yeah, and that's very valuable. Yeah, my daughter's been to Spain and to England and to Canada and to all over the States and to Australia. So that's all. And Paris, she's been to Paris a bunch of times. So all that stuff just, I think, helps make a more well-rounded view of what is life really about, and what are people really about? You got to travel.
That's what I always tell people too. They're like, "What?" They ask me what's my favorite place, and I go wherever I meet people. Because everyone's different. Whether you go to the South or Mexico or Canada, I mean, everyone's a little bit got their own little picadillo. So it's nice meeting the picadillos.
Yeah, and then you see the similarities too. We all have the same basic drives and goals, and we're trying to feed our families and have a good time, and live and work and be prosperous and fulfilled. That's the same all over the place, and people just have different sort of barriers or different kind of conditions under which they pursue those goals.
Well, yeah. I interviewed wrestler Kurt Angle and I asked him what was the favorite place he ever visited, and he said Russia. And he said the people there were amazing. He goes, I don't agree with their politics, obviously, but the people that were there that I met with several times were great people. I'm like, wow.
100%. Yeah, I've been to St. Petersburg. I would say the exact same thing. Magnificent people. Yeah, people are great. There's a lot of ragging on the human race, like the human race is a cancer, it's a cancer on the planet. And I don't believe that at all. I think human beings, the people I know, they're infinitely interesting. You scratch at just an ordinary person, and they show you, this depth that's just amazing. I have to say, I was in a traffic accident just yesterday.
Oh, geez.
In fact, I was just renting a car to replace my car, which got a little bit kinked. And, I was hit by an old gentleman who was a real character. And I could see why, his eyesight's not so good, and he really didn't notice that the light had changed. And I wasn't injured, and he wasn't injured. So there was like no real tragedy. It's just like a lot of extra fooling around to get everything fixed and paid for. But my impulse was to talk to him and find out more about him, because he was like a real character, and I'm an actor. So when I meet unusual people, I'm fascinated by, wow, you've got now, he had like a kind of a crippled arm, like maybe he had cerebral palsy or something on one arm, and then he also had these suspenders that look like the keys on a piano.
Okay. Yeah.
And I thought, God, I should have asked the player, how do you do that with one arm? But anyway, even in the midst of kind of something that's sort of upsetting, like a car accident and being struck by somebody, there's something fascinating about people, and everybody is a little bit of a treasure, in a way.
Agreed. And you never know. I mean, I've been amazed so many times when you meet some amazing people in the most random places. Versus I'm going to go to this one place and all these hot shots are here and this and that, and you go, and then all of a sudden you're like walking around the corner and you go into a little dive restaurant and you're like, hey, I met this great guy. But,
yeah. Well, I think the perception is, or the lie is that we kind of buy, is that everybody's kind of the same and everybody's kind of like us, or everybody's really different from us. And the truth is, everybody's just the variety is infinite.
Yeah,
and that's what's kind of cool. And people my mom is a great example of this. She always is very interested in people, and she knows their names, and she interacts with fans and people at restaurants that she goes to, and she knows the waitress and where the waitress's son went to college, and and where what the busboy's name is. And she's got this incredibly, I just think it's a wonderful attribute of being interested in other people. And the great thing about that is, when you're interested in other people, you don't have as much attention on yourself, which is a kind of a nice attribute as well. People that have too much attention on themselves are, of course, kind of neurotic, and or worse, they're sort of egotistical. But a person that is willing and admiring of others, such as my mom, and which I hope to aspire to be,
of course,
are really special people.
I totally agree. It's, well, I mean, they always say that what's the most beautiful word in the English language is your own name. Yeah, people. Instead of making it about yourself, you talk about the person you met, you're meeting with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true.
Do you think, I wanted to ask an impressionist this. It seems like, and maybe it's just because I'm old, that the voices of years past had more distinctive voices, whereas now they're not quite as distinctive. I mean, you do Bryan Cranston and Jordan Peterson are awesome. But, I mean, you go back 30 years, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it seems like everybody had a unique voice.
You're right. I've heard that comment a lot, and I've noted it myself. And I have come to the conclusion that that the American culture, at least in the States, right, has become more homogenized. Our sound has definitely become more homogenized. We're losing some of the peculiarities of accent that we had, as you say, 60, 70 years ago. When Jimmy Stewart was around, there was a particular, there's a kind of an American sound to that. So that's a sort of a Midwestern sound. And if you go to the Midwest, you hear a certain amount of, you don't hear, tremendous characters like that necessarily, but you hear a little bit of a distinction.
Yeah.
But not as much as there used to be. You can still find people in the little pockets that have, very strong kind of Southern accent like this. You will find people that talk like this today. And that is, pretty extreme. Or you'll meet people in California that kind of talk like this. Definitely, you'll encounter those kinds. And people, of course, in New York. New York is kind of right accents, and those all come from the old country, right? They got translated into the English language in a particular way. It exists, but I think in terms of like stars and celebrities, there has evolved a kind of a sameness to it. Also, they're younger people too, so I don't know, they don't stick out so much to us. We don't recognize them as an older generation too. We don't recognize them as being as unique as they seem to have been in the past.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't know if it was just me getting old or, It's
partially that. It's partially we're getting old. But, here's the other thing. A lot of those movie stars of the 40s and 50s, the ubiquitous ones, the ones that we, all impressionists used to do, Humphrey Bogart and Vincent Price and Boris Karloff and those guys. Those were all actors who also had made a name for themselves and a career for themselves in radio.
Yeah.
And that I think changes things up a lot and shuffles the deck a bit, because radio,
they wanted different voices.
Yeah. And I don't know. I bemoan the fact that there seem to be fewer voices today that have a lot of distinction, but in some ways it just means that I need to study them a little bit more and find out what makes them different. And so that's why Bryan Cranston, who actually sounds rather a lot like I do, but I've studied his voice quite a bit. I actually listened to his audiobook, which was terrific read about his life. And I noticed that he has a particular kind of way of delivering communication and a particular kind of flavor or sound that's just different from mine.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's the game of it.
But, and like I said, your Jordan Peterson was pretty dead on. Which,
thank you.
Was that a hard one to
get? I've been listening to a lot of him. Well, I've been listening to a lot of him. He's got a very high voice, actually.
Yeah.
And this kind of soft Canadian accent, which has tones of Scotland in it and other things that are unique to the Canadian culture. But he's got his intensity and his articulateness are what I really respect and would like to emulate. I wish I could be as articulate as Jordan Peterson. But in the meantime, at least I can try to mimic his voice.
I met a young man. He asked me to be a guest on his podcast, and that's his goal, is to be more like Jordan Peterson intellectually.
Well, I think he sets a great example. Whatever you think about politics and all that stuff, he has a very humanistic view, and even irrespective of his beliefs, his ability to distill a message and be articulate about it and be persuasive about it is a model. And it should be a model for any young person who wants to influence other people in the public eye or not. You need to be able to express yourself clearly and with integrity and with intention. I think he's pretty unique in that. Most speakers kind of they kind of hem and haw, and they use a lot of I don't know, they thumper around a little bit like I'm doing right now. And he's a kind of a model of a guy who cares enough about his own thoughts to work it out ahead of time, clarify his own thoughts so that he can convey them to other people with a lot of precision, let's say.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing that you don't hear a lot of he's willing to say, I don't know about that. That's not my field of expertise. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, not many people will say that.
That's right. They'll come up with some sort of answer.
Yeah, exactly. They'll make something up.
Yeah,
I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could.
Vacuum.
I couldn't deal with his diet though. Have you heard what his diet is?
No.
Oh my God! You know what he eats for a living? Every day,
No.
every meal. He eats steak, salt, and water.
Wow.
And that's it.
That's an expensive meal. Steak, salt, and water. That's it.
That's it. Every meal, he goes, I never cheat. And the lady asked him, why do you eat that? And he said, because I was obesely. He did it to lose weight. He started believing in the carnivore diet, and that's what he does.
I find it hard to believe he doesn't consume any vegetables at all. No greens.
That's what he says. He eats meat, salt, and water.
Maybe he eats meat, salt, and water, and a salad or something. I don't know how you'd survive that way. That makes me sad because it means Jordan Peterson may not be around for very long.
But who knows, right? I mean, everyone's makeup is different of what we need to survive.
He would make some cannibal very happy.
Right? He said he lives off the fat of the meat. It's a fatty meat. He doesn't eat lean meat. I don't know. Like I said, I couldn't do it.
Incredible.
I heard that one. Man, you got more hoopsta than I do. I couldn't stick with that. What do you see coming up over the next couple of years, and how's the entertainment industry changed, do you think?
Well, it's going to continue to proliferate, I guess. I mean, we seem to have an unyielding appetite for entertainment, which is great.
Yeah.
I think, and also it's become quite democratized because of the internet. So you're going to see new voices and new personalities and new creativity manifesting. And as long as the internet stays open, which I hope it will, and free, relatively free, then I think we're going to continue to see amazing things from creators and be able to really share our experiences and our aesthetics with one another. Obviously, the current trend of big budget pictures is very, kind of Marvel superhero centric, and I don't know how long that's going to go on. I think I'm sort of amazed it's gone on as long as it has, but there's an infinity of stories to tell, just like there's an infinity of different viewpoints in humanity. There's an infinity of stories to tell. So as far as like the business aspect of it, gosh, I really don't know. I have to pull a Jordan Peterson here and say, I really don't know. I have no idea. But I tell you what, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I'm amazed at how the streaming services have taken over movies, it seems like.
Yeah, it makes sense though. I mean, it's frictionless. It's in people's homes. People can watch it on the go. And when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, I noticed a lot of people watching shows on their phone in the subway.
Yeah.
So we all saw that coming, and now it's actually viable. It can happen, and who wouldn't? I mean, it's the same reason why people pick up a book and read a magazine on the subway. It's an escape from what is frankly just kind of boring waiting around time. So I think the streaming thing makes sense. It's going to just get easier and easier to watch a variety of content. It means a lot of competition, for people's attention.
Yeah.
And so the entertainment has to be, I mean, that's the great game of the entertainment business. They're trying to get there first with something more fantastic and more interesting and more compelling. And that's a great game, like what story can we tell that people, that will really respond to? And it's not a rote formula. You can't just sort of extrapolate, I guess, unless you're Tom Cruise, who seems to be pretty good at it. You can't just figure out what the public is going to want. You got to, sometimes you're surprised by a runaway hit that's like, wow, people wanted to see that movie.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
Great story.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it's interesting just to see a lot of the big movie stars doing TV now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I think that's kind of where it's going.
Well, that's the other thing. The speed of production is so great, and it used to take a long time to shoot a TV series or a film. It used to be very complicated. It's still complicated, but it's not as complicated as it was. So it's a star like Julia Roberts can do, in a year. I don't know the actual stats on this, but hypothetically, a star like Julia Roberts could do a limited series like Gaslit. Could do a film with George Clooney that I know she did.
Yeah.
She could do a spread for Chanel. She could do an animated film. She could do maybe another series or an arc on another series. Just a tremendous amount of production that in the past would have been more problematic to schedule and to actually to produce.
Yeah, absolutely. Even for like you doing voiceover work, you now have a studio in your house, and you can. I mean, how many different things can you record in a day, and then just email?
Well, much more things than I am actually. I have a lot of free time where I could be doing stuff, but in the morning I could work on commercials for KFC. Like today, a little later on, I'm going to Disney to work on a project. A couple weeks ago, I worked on Young Sheldon for a day, and before that, I was in New York on FBI Most Wanted. And in between, I'm auditioning for other things. So there's plenty of ways to fill up your time. And if you do have any way to produce at home, as I do, then you can just sort of fill in the gaps. Like I'm going to start an audiobook series, a series of Western novels this week, and I'll do that. I'll do that kind of at night or on days when I'm not doing other things. An actor loves. No, I actually don't know the author. It's a new writer.
Okay.
And I'm going to do 3 or 4 books hopefully before the end of the year, which I love to do. I like to, especially Westerns. Westerns are great to do because you kind of, I don't know, I grew up watching Westerns. If you were a child of the 60s and 70s or 50s, Westerns were like the zombie programs of today. They're everywhere.
Yeah, so true.
Literally every 4th show was a Western. And so those voices and those characters are like, it's almost like a family reunion for me. Play these characters and come in on a stagecoach and say, well, I know we've got some hard times ahead, but it's going to get a lot worse because the bad guys are coming, and just love that stuff. It's just super fun.
I'm getting a hat made right now in the shape of the rifleman's hat.
Oh, really? Wow.
Chuck Connor's hat. Yeah, it's like
Chuck Connor's hat. Wow, nice.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, I have a nice cowboy hat too, and it's. I think it's definitely a sign of our generation that you feel like I need to have a cowboy hat.
Well, yeah.
One day I was in Dallas, Texas. I'll just tell the story really quickly.
Absolutely.
I was in Dallas, Texas, and I had a dream about a big ass white Tom Mix hat.
Yep.
And I was in Dallas, and I went. I'm going to a hat store. I'm going to go. They're going to have this hat, and I found this big ass, and it's called a Tom Mix hat, and it's just enormous. And if you've gone to my YouTube channel, I've used it a few times. I did a funny musical number one time wearing this hat, and it's just huge, and sort of stone white. And I was so happy to have it, and I've had it now for probably close to 30 years. Every now and then I bring it out and wear it for some. It always looks ridiculous, but it's just so oversized. But the funny thing is, I bought that hat. I had it for about a year, and then I got contacted by this Chamber of Commerce of San Antonio asking me to be the Grand Marshal of their parade. And I went, absolutely. I got the hat. I got the hat. But first, I bought the hat. Then I got asked to be the Grand Marshal. And that's the way the universe works.
That's about it, too, right? Yeah, my day job is I work for Stetson. And
oh, no kidding. Oh, gosh, you can subscribe. Then you can have the hat of the month.
I could. Again, all the boots and jeans and shirts and all that. Yeah. So.
Wow.
I'm going to Dallas in January for a meeting.
Nice.
Yeah. So my territory right now is all of California and Hawaii, and then
Just that.
and then I have the national account Boot Barn, and I think they're in 40 states or 38 states right now. So I get to travel.
Cool.
Yeah. But I love hearing about the hat stories. So,
yeah.
Big white hat. Got to have one.
Yeah.
I got there's a comedian, Craig Shoemaker, the Love Master.
In the 20s and 30s care at all about having a cowboy hat.
He always wanted a cowboy hat, but he could never get one because he has a really big head. So I got him a size 8, which is...
Wow.
Yeah, he's got a big head. He goes, I got a big head. You'll never find me a hat. I go, I got it right now. I'll get it for you.
Right now.
So it worked out. But like you said, everyone's got to have a cowboy hat.
Yeah, it's just I need to do a little survey. I need to ask around some of my younger friends and see if they actually have one or not, or if it's a real one. It has to be a real one. These costume store Woolworths cowboy hats, they're not they fall apart in the rain. That's not what we're talking about.
Not at all. I understand them. I call those the Taylor Swift hats, and Taylor Swift boots.
Yeah,
it's people that want to go to a concert and look country, but they don't realize that. Like, I mean, my 50X hat was $700, so it's like,
wow.
People don't realize that. They just think they're just going to a cowboy hat.
You got me beat. I didn't spend $700 on a hat. That's good.
Well, yeah, the cowboy boots are can be anywhere from $400 to $800, and
sure,
the belt buckle's $1,000. So,
wow,
if it's real, yeah.
That's to look right. That's the way to do it right.
That's it. A lot more westerns coming out. Have you been able to do any work with the westerns?
No, not yet. I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. I know there's a lot more in production, and I was slated to do one just before the pandemic. It was a pilot that actually my sister had written. My sister's a writer producer. She worked on Friends. She's the only one in the family with an Emmy so far. And
how crazy is that?
Yeah, and she had written this wonderful, funny Western comedy, and I was set to play a very small role in it. But I was just thrilled. I was going to be on a stagecoach and the whole deal. And the first day we were set to shoot, we got rained out, and then COVID hit, so we never got to shoot it, and it died the death. But that's as close as I've come. But I would love to be in a Western. I noticed Westworld was just canceled, and that's a pity. I was trying to get onto that show too. Although that was a kind of a mind bender. That show, I have to say, I had to stop watching it after a while because it was making me a little
different turns.
I'll take a lot of different turns, which is fine, but they were all sort of disturbing. I like to watch TV. My wife and I watch before we go to bed, and I tend to stray away from the nightmare-producing content.
See, I'm with you. I tell my wife that all the time. We just got through Halloween, right? She's like, "Pick a scary movie." I go, "Not watching one. That's me picking one."
No, watch the IT Crowd.
Yeah, exactly. I want to watch something fun, light. The scary movie, because I get nightmares. It's like, nope, don't need to play that through my head every night.
100%.
I'm with you on that. Well, hey, what do you have?
I should
go ahead.
Yeah, I have. I want to mention this online workshop that I've got for people that want to be actors, because that's something I've also worked on a lot. I've been an actor, as I said, for 35 years, and the big challenge of being an actor that amount of time is keeping it going, building it and maintaining it, because there's all kinds of things that are kind of wearing away at an actor to keep them out of the game, and sometimes you get on a show and you're on it for a while, and then you're cut adrift, and you can sit fallow for a long time. I know a lot of actors that they tell me, I haven't worked in 6 months. I'm like, oh my God, you haven't worked in 6 months? Even before the pandemic, So I created a series of videos that talk about the successful things that I did, some of which I learned from my mom, some of which I learned from my own experience, to actually keep and maintain a career that'll make things easier for people just starting out, or for people that have been actors and have noticed that their career goes up and down, and they're busy and then they're not. little things to look at and techniques that work so that they can, support their family and just be an actor and not have to go into real estate or not have to go into work at Kinko's or whatever, but stay in the acting and the creative realm. And so it's available now. It's pretty reasonably priced, I think. Anybody can afford it. And anyway, it's got a money-back guarantee, so you can look at the videos and decide for yourself whether it's helpful to you. And it's available online at jimworkingactor.com. My name, jimworkingactor.com.
And I'll make sure to have that link on my website so people, if they want to, they'll come check out our episode, and then they can hit that link and go see what it takes to be a working actor. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I live in the neighborhood of Los Angeles, so
yeah,
I take Uber rides with a lot of actors. Let's just say.
Oh, wow.
Because it's my wife and I were just talking about this weekend. Like, you go to a restaurant and you're like, hey, I've seen that guy on a show, and he's like your waiter, your bartender.
Wow.
It's hit and miss. So that's actually a really good concept you have.
Yeah, and there's a lot, as I said, a lot wearing away at an actor. For example, this wonderful proliferation of content. We've got, Amazon, Hulu, and a gazillion other platforms.
Yeah.
They're wonderful in terms of residual payments, royalty payments for an actor. So I don't see a lot of residuals off of the work I've done for Amazon and other platforms. And luckily I've got a very long track record, and I'm busy. I keep generating new work, and I do have residuals from 30 years of broadcast. But people just starting out, it's harder to make and maintain a living, even if you've been on a network show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas in the old days, there were all kind of benefits to it. They'd play it a few times, and they'd have it on NBC or CBS, and you'd see a nice check. Plus, everybody in the world would see it. It was easier to get well known to casting directors and other people. Now it's like I always hear about series. Someone says, "Oh, have you seen this series? It's called Raccoon Life," and you're like, "No, I never have." What is it? "Oh, yeah, it's in its 5th season." You're like, "Really?
Dude,
where?"
I know. I do the same thing. It's and as you know, I went back and started watching old shows, and whether it was the Happy Days or Laverne and Shirley's, but everyone watched them, and that because there wasn't 400 channels.
Yeah, that was the choice.
Yeah, you watched channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. That was it. So.
Yep.
Yeah, my daughter's like, I haven't watched a single episode of Game of Thrones, and my daughters are just like, how could you not watch that show? I'm like,
you haven't given in.
Well, 7 seasons later, I'm not going to start over, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of great content, but then there's also life, right? We have our lives, and our lives are also infinitely interesting. And how much entertainment does one person need? I don't know. It's great to have a lot of variety, but like when you go into a restaurant, like the Cheesecake Factory is a perfect example.
Perfect, yeah.
Cheesecake Factory hands you this
book.
Directory. Yeah, and it's, oh my God, I don't have time to read all this. There's almost it's great, and I'm amazed that their kitchen can create so much variety. That's very commendable. But in the same way with television, it's like, oh God, I don't know what kind of, do I want to watch a zombie show that has a kind of a humorous bent, one that has a sort of political bent?
Yeah.
Do I want to watch a zombie show in Malibu? Or one that stars ex-hockey players? Like, oh my God, this is like too many choices.
I totally feel that way. And we don't watch cable TV anymore. I mean, we're streaming, and then I have an antenna. So when I want to watch the Olympics or whatever, I spend $20 and I get HD on my local shows, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, it's an interesting time. I really don't know what the future holds. It's great for actors. It's great for writers. There's a tremendous writing going on. I don't know if anybody's making any money at it, but it's, the opportunities for expression and creativity are through the roof. And so I'm happy about that. I think that inevitably is going to benefit everybody.
I agree. Directing, and obviously there's so many people behind the scenes. So the more work, there's more work for them as well.
100%. No, I'm very, very happy about that for sure.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. So you want people to go check out jimworkingactor.com, and then and
my also on TikTok. I've got a new viral video on TikTok. I've had quite a few viral ones. I've got a lot of followers, and I put up content more and more on TikTok. I've sort of cracked that and putting up a lot of impressions there. It's just my name, Jim Meskimen. Also, Instagram, Jimpressions is the handle, and YouTube. I'm still feeding YouTube, although YouTube is just kind of not the force it used to be. I think TikTok has sort of knocked everybody out of the arena for now. But I still put up stuff, at least one video a day on TikTok. My celebrity fortune cookies and my actor tips, and all those other ones.
And are you still doing the custom Jimpressions?
Oh yeah. Anytime anybody wants a message from a celebrity that I do an impression of, they can just go to jimmeskimen.com and go to those custom Jimpressions and try to keep that reasonably priced. And I'll fire back a nice recording for you. Yeah,
and I think I'm going to have to hit you up for that one.
Oh, please do. Please do. Yeah, I've done a bunch of them. Yeah, they're fun to do. People use them as gifts or as their outgoing phone message or God knows what.
I think I'm going to use it as my wife's ringtone. She likes Christopher Walken, so.
Oh, it's a ringtone. That's a good one.
Yeah, because
it could be. What's your wife's name?
Wendy,
your phone is ringing. Come on, pick it up. Could be important. Who knows?
Exactly. My ringtone for my wife is literally the Love Boat theme song.
Well, that's pretty good. You can't beat that.
Well, hey, thank you so much for your time, Jim, and I really appreciate it. And
you're welcome. Thanks so much for the generous interview. I appreciate it too. Very gracious.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you got coming up.
All right.
Thanks, Jim.
You betcha.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.